Welcome back. I'm Jill with the carefreekitchen.com, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite recipe for homemade sausage gravy. And this is the best country gravy, especially when you pile it on some homemade baking powder biscuits. Okay, before we get started, be sure to like this video, follow me here, and share it with a friend. And as always, you can get a printable version of this recipe on my website at thecarefreekitchen.com. Okay, so to get started, here are the ingredients that you are going to need. So I have some regular all-purpose flour here. I have some salt, some baking powder. This is a little bit of extra flour for the counter when I'm rolling it out. And then I've got some milk, just some regular whole milk there. This is the little cutter that I will use to cut the biscuits. It's great to have one with nice sharp edges here. And then I have some really cold butter. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is preheat the oven for about 425 degrees. Okay, so I just have my flour here, and I'm just going to go ahead and pour in the baking powder and the salt, and then using a whisk, I'm just going to mix that all in. Okay, and then for my butter, I'm just going to use about 1/3 of a cup of butter. And I'll just take it out of the wrapper here, and then I'm going to cut it into some smaller chunks. And you want to be sure and use really cold butter, and then that way the steam from the butter will make your biscuits really light and fluffy and flaky. So then I'm just going to add my butter to my flour. Okay, and then I'll just kind of use my knife here, get that all mixed in, and kind of cut my butter in here. And you just kind of want it to be little chunks in there, little granules of the butter, without getting it warm with your hands. Okay, so there you can kind of see it's pretty ground up. The butter's kind of chopped up in there. Okay, then I'm going to add my milk, and we want to keep this really as light and fluffy as we can. So I'm just going to use a little fork here. You can make this in a mixer, but it's much easier to ensure that you get light and fluffy biscuits if you just do it by hand. Okay, so now that's pretty mixed in here. I'm just going to use my hand to pick up the rest of this flour here in the bottom of my bowl. Okay, now we're just going to take a little bit of flour here and put on our counter. And then as I'm getting all of the little crumbs out of there, put it right there. Okay, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of flour on my rolling pin here too. Okay, now we want to roll this out until it's about a 1/2 inch thick, maybe 3/4 inch thick even. And again, the key is to not overwork your dough at this point. So that looks perfect. Okay, so then for my baking sheet, I just have a baking sheet that is covered in parchment paper here. I'm going to just use my cutter, and you want to be sure and go straight down. You don't want to twist it, otherwise those layers have a tendency to not be quite as fluffy. So just straight down. And the amount of biscuits that you make will depend on how thick they are, and then also the size of your ring. My ring here is 2 inches, maybe it's 2.5. You can go a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller depending on what you're doing with your biscuits. Okay, and then with the rest of the dough, you can roll it up just enough so that you can get more biscuits out of it. You can use a rolling pin, or you can just use your hand here. And maybe I can get one more out of there. Perfect. Okay, and then before we get going anymore, what we're going to do is take your thumb and press down on the middle of each one of these biscuits, and that will help the edges rise a little bit more. And now I have my egg wash, and this is just 1 egg mixed in with some milk. I'm just gonna do kind of an egg wash here on top, and this will give it that nice deep golden color. All right, now we're gonna bake these in a preheated 425-degree oven for 12 to 14 minutes. All right, and then for the gravy, we're going to need some maple sausage. And I like the maple, but you can use just the regular. It's great too, and we need 1 pound of that. We're gonna use a little bit of flour, and this is onion powder and garlic powder. I've got just a little bit of salt here, some pepper, and then some whole milk. And I also forgot a little pat of butter. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is put the sausage in my pan, and then I'm gonna pour just a couple tablespoons of water over the sausage. And I do this just so it's easier to break up the sausage. So I'm just gonna cook this on about medium heat until it is no longer pink. And I'll just use this spoon here to break it all up because we want kind of fine little granules of sausage in there. And you can just continue to break that up with the back of a spoon while it's browning. This recipe is so quick. You can literally make it in like 10 minutes. And it can all be made while the biscuits are in the oven. All right, that looks pretty good. And now I'm just gonna take my onion powder and my garlic powder and add that. Perfect. Mix that all in. Okay, and now I'm gonna take just a little bit more butter and put it in there. Just a couple tablespoons is great. We're just gonna melt that down. And stir that in. Okay, and then we're gonna take our flour and just add about 1/4 cup flour. Just mix this all in until it is combined. And the flour is what's going to thicken our gravy here. Okay, and now I'm just gonna take our milk and pour our milk into our gravy. I'm actually just gonna take a whisk here and whisk this a little bit. Now we want to continue to cook this for about 2 minutes. Bring it up to a boil first and then cook it for about 2 minutes while we're stirring it. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. All right, that is starting to thicken just a little bit. So now we're going to stir it here for just a couple minutes while that continues to thicken. Okay, now I'm gonna move over to a wooden spoon to make sure I'm getting everything on the bottom. The gravy is nice and smooth, has those beautiful chunks of sausage in it. And then after your gravy is all thick, then you're gonna wanna taste it and then salt and pepper it to taste. So it may need just a little bit more salt or a little bit more pepper. Okay, there we go. That looks just about right. You want it to pretty thickly coat the back of a spoon. And it will continue to thicken as it cools a little bit. I like to add just a little bit of parsley at the end to make it all pretty. All right, we've got our biscuits ready. Look how beautiful and fluffy they look. And then we've got our gravy ready. Let's just go ahead and assemble this. Open up a biscuit here. Check out that thick, rich, and amazing home-style gravy. This is the perfect brunch menu idea or holiday breakfast. This homemade sausage gravy is our absolute favorite country gravy recipe. It's quick and easy to make, and it tastes great with the most amazing homemade biscuits. Be sure to like this video, follow me here, and share it with a friend, and I'll show you all kinds of fun and easy recipes that your family will love. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.